Well, good morning, Willowbrook. It's great to have you with our daily devos. Today, I feel privileged that I get to give you the first chapter of the book of Philippians. I would say of all the books in the Bible, it actually is my favorite book. It talks about joy. It just talks about rejoicing. It's written by Paul, who is not in a rejoicing place. He's not sitting in some hotel, but he's chained to Roman guards. He's likely to be called to be before Caesar at any time, where thumbs up means he walks away, thumbs down means he's taken outside the gates and he's beheaded. I don't know about you, but I get nervous when I have a dentist appointment, let alone having that kind of thing hanging over my head. And yet in this book, he gives us a picture about having joy, about not being under our circumstances, but through the power of Christ, being above our circumstance. And I think one of the things that Paul was able to do so good was to see, even in what would look like negative circumstances, how God could work out to a greater good. I'm just going to read this section in chapter 1, starting at verse 12, going down to verse 18, and just listen to what he says. I want you to know, dear brothers and sisters, that everything that has happened to me has helped spread the good news. For everyone here, including the whole palace guard, knows that I am in chains because of Christ. And because of my imprisonment, most of the believers have gained confidence and boldly speak God's message without fear. It is true that some are preaching out of jealousy and rivalry, but others preach about Christ with pure motives. They preach because they love me, and they know that I have been appointed to defend the good news. Those others do not have pure motives. As they preach about Christ, they preach with selfish ambition, not sincerely, intending to make my chains more painful to me. But that doesn't matter. Whether their motives are false or genuine, the message about Christ is being preached either way, so I will rejoice, and I will continue to rejoice. Now, I find that so amazing, Paul's attitude. Here he is saying, I'm in prison, yet it's good because the palace guards are coming to know Christ. These are the people who are closest to Caesar. Matter of fact, we know that many of these guards come to know Christ. We know from secular writings that many of them expressed their faith, and there was a group of strong Christians. Guess what? You can relate that back to Paul. So Paul has said, I am uniquely getting to influence the greatest influencers because of where I am, because of the house arrest, because I have to be chained to these Roman guards. And he says, listen, there's people out there, they're becoming confident and bold because they see me bold in prison. And he said, many who with good motives are preaching and the gospel's going out, but some who are doing it, think about it, to cause Paul pain. Actually, to stir things up enough so when Caesar does decide, he sees this disturbance and says, well, it's just easier to get rid of this guy. They're literally wanting Paul to be killed. And yet he says, you know what? If they preach from a good motive or a bad motive, you know what? Yet Christ is being preached. See, I love that because so much in life, it's not what happens to us, but it's what happens in us. It's not the event we're going through, but the perspective of the event. Remember, Paul talked about that, that he knew that he might die for his faith or he might live. And he said literally to die is gain, to live is Christ. In other words, Paul was in this situation. No matter what you do, I see the positive. If I live for Christ. If I die, I get to go with the one I love and I've been serving. Paul had an ability in psychological terms, or it's called framing. It's when you're able to take an event and you're able to put a frame around the event that shows the positive outcome. You're not making something up. There really were positive outcomes to Paul being imprisoned in Rome. He always prayed. He always wanted to go to Rome, the seat of power in the world that day. And guess what? He got an all-expense trip because he appealed to Caesar. And I'm just saying, no matter what we're going through, if we look to God, God can show us how to frame that in such a way that ultimately the honor and glory goes to Him. And no matter what we're facing, guess what? As a believer, we have the confidence that God can change the circumstance. God can give us the power to go through the circumstance, or God can bring us to Him where there is no circumstance. No matter what, we know there is hope in Christ. I hope you enjoy this book. I hope you enjoy going through Philippians. I think it's an amazing book, and I hope God will speak to you through it as much as he has spoken to me as I've read and studied the book of Philippians. Guys, have a blessed day.